Admiral Kethver stood in the command center of his massive warship, watching the stars through the huge viewing window. His dark blue skin gleamed under the soft lights, and his forearms moved gracefully as he reviewed reports on his floating screen. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and ships like his kept that rule strong. Admiral called his second-in-command Captain Velther. "We have the monthly reports from the border zones." Kethver turned his large black eyes toward the younger officer. "Any problems in the outer regions?" "Nothing serious, sir. Some mining disputes on Kellex Prime, and the usual complaints from the Drovan colonies. But there is something strange from Sector 7749. The Forbidden Zone?" Kethver's voice carried surprise. "Nothing ever happens there. That primitive world has been quiet for 800 years. Velther hesitated. "Sir, our long-range sensors picked up energy readings from the Sol system. Very strong readings." The Admiral waved one hand dismissively. "Probably solar flares or some natural event. Those creatures on the third planet barely have spaceflight. Last time we checked, they were still using chemical rockets." "But sir, the energy patterns don't match natural phenomena. They look artificial." "Some of the junior scientists think too much," Kethver interrupted. "The humans are a protected species. We put that 50-light-year barrier around their system to keep them safe from the dangers of the galaxy. They cannot possibly have technology that would interest us." Velther pulled up a holographic display showing the Sol system. Red dots marked the forbidden boundary that no Imperial ship had crossed in centuries. The readings suggest they might have developed faster than light travel. Kethver laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Impossible. Our scientists calculated that species would need at least another 1,000 years to reach that level. They are still fighting wars with primitive weapons on their own planet. Our last survey was 300 years ago, Admiral. 300 years is nothing for technological development. Look at us. The Empire has used the same basic technology for the last millennium because it works perfectly. Why change? Something that already conquers worlds?" The command center fell quiet, except for the humming of computers and life support systems. Other officers worked at their stations, monitoring the vast fleet under Kethver's command. The Seventh Fleet contained over 500 ships, enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. "Sir," a young communications officer called out, "I'm detecting radio transmissions from the Sol system. They're very advanced." Kethver floated over to the officer's station. His species didn't need legs. They moved by controlling gravity fields around their bodies. "Show me." The officer played the intercepted signals. Complex mathematical patterns and digital codes filled the air. Even to Kethver's trained ear, the technology behind these transmissions sounded sophisticated. "This cannot be right," he said. "Run full diagnostics on our equipment." "Already done, sir. 3 times. The equipment is working perfectly." Captain Velther joined them. "Admiral, perhaps we should send a probe to investigate, just to be sure." "Absolutely not." Kethver's voice boomed across the command center. "The Forbidden Zone exists for good reasons. Those humans must be protected from galactic civilization until they mature enough to handle it. They are like children playing with dangerous toys. But what if they are not children anymore?" Velther asked quietly. The Admiral turned his massive frame toward the captain. "Are you questioning Imperial policy? The High Council declared Earth a protected world 800 years ago. The humans were barely discovering agriculture when we first found them. Now they have some basic technology, but they're still primitive compared to us." "Of course, sir. I meant no disrespect." Kethver studied the star charts again. The Sol system sat in the middle of the largest protected zone in Imperial space. No other species had earned such a large buffer area. The Empire usually conquered or destroyed any world that developed space travel. But something about Earth had made the ancient High Council decide differently. "The protection zone stays in place," he declared. "Whatever energy readings we're detecting, they cannot threaten an empire that has conquered 1,000 worlds. The humans will develop naturally under our protection until they're ready for galactic society." As the day cycle ended on the ship, most officers went to their rest quarters. Kethver remained on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 50 light years away, a small blue world spun around a yellow star. He had seen images of it, mostly water, with green and brown land masses. The humans looked fragile, with only 2 arms and 2 legs and skin in various shades of pink and brown. What harm could such creatures possibly cause? Far away, at the very edge of the Forbidden Zone, something moved among the asteroids. It was small, dark, and perfectly silent. No Imperial sensors detected it because it used technology that the Empire had never seen before. Inside the small ship, a human named Commander Sarah Chun watched the Imperial fleet through advanced monitoring equipment. "Control, this is Stealth Ship Horizon." She spoke quietly into her communication device. "Imperial forces confirmed in Sector 7749. Fleet composition matches our estimates. Outdated designs probably hasn't changed in centuries. Copy that, Horizon. Any sign they've detected our activities?" Chun smiled as she watched the Imperial ships following their predictable patrol patterns. "Negative, Control. They don't even know we're here. Their sensor technology is at least 50 years behind ours." "Understood. Continue monitoring and report any changes." "How long until you return to base?" 2 more days of observation, then heading home. "The brass will want to see these readings." Chun leaned back in her pilot's seat and looked out at the Imperial fleet. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way, all flowing curves and bright lights. But they moved slowly and clumsily compared to human vessels. She had been watching them for 3 weeks, and their routines never changed. "Such a shame," she whispered. "They'd probably think they're protecting us." The human ship continued its silent watch, invisible to the Empire that had no idea Earth had been studying them for decades. In the depths of space, 2 civilizations observed each other, but only one knew the other existed. Captain Velther was having a normal patrol day when everything changed. His ship, the Imperial Sword, moved slowly along the outer edge of the Sol System's Forbidden Zone. These patrols happened every few months, more out of tradition than necessity. Nothing ever happened here. "Captain," his navigator called out. "I'm reading 3 unknown ships at bearing 27 Mark IV. Velther moved to the main display screen. Sure enough, 3 vessels appeared on the scanner, sitting right at the boundary line of the protected zone. They were sleek and angular, unlike any Imperial design he had ever seen. "Size and configuration?" he asked. "Each ship is about 200 meters long. The design is strange, sir. Very smooth, no visible weapon ports, and they're running almost completely silent. Probably some lost trader ships," Velther decided. "Open a communication channel. Let's guide them away from the Forbidden Zone before they accidentally enter protected space." The communications officer worked at her station for a moment. "Channel open, sir." Velther straightened his uniform and activated the view screen. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Velther of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You are approaching a protected star system. Please identify yourselves and state your business." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered to life, showing the interior of an alien bridge. But these aliens looked surprisingly familiar. 2 arms, 2 legs, pink-brown skin, hair on their heads. They looked almost exactly like the primitive humans from the protected world. A human female in a blue uniform appeared on screen. She had short brown hair and calm, intelligent eyes. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earth Navy vessel Phoenix. We're conducting standard patrol operations in our territorial space. Valther blinked in confusion. I'm sorry. Did you say United Earth Navy? And territorial space? That's correct, Captain. These are our ships, and this is our space. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Valther said carefully. This star system is under Imperial protection. The species on the third planet of the Sol system is primitive and developing. They don't have space-capable military vessels. Commander Chun's expression didn't change. Captain, I think you're the one who's confused. Earth has had faster-than-light travel for over 2 centuries. Our Navy currently operates more than 4,000 ships in this sector alone. The Imperial captain felt his world spinning. 4,000 ships? That's impossible. Your species barely had chemical rockets the last time we checked. When was the last time you checked? 300 years ago. Chun nodded. That explains the confusion. A lot can happen in 3 centuries. Now, you said this space is under Imperial protection. Protected from what? Valther struggled to understand what he was hearing. Protected from the dangers of galactic civilization. Your species isn't ready for contact with advanced technologies and complex political situations. I see. Chun's voice remained perfectly calm. And who decided that? The Imperial High Council, of course. We have a responsibility to guide younger species until they mature, without asking us. Well, yes, you weren't advanced enough to understand the decision. Commander Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was still polite, but somehow colder. Captain Valther, I need to inform you that Earth recognizes no Imperial authority over our star system or any surrounding space. We consider this entire region to be human sovereign territory. But that's impossible. The Empire has claimed this region for over 2,000 years. Claimed, perhaps, but never actually controlled. Your ships haven't entered this space in centuries. In human law, that means abandonment of any claim. Valther felt panic rising in his chest. This conversation wasn't going at all like he expected. Commander Chun, I'm sure we can resolve this diplomatically. Perhaps you should return to your home planet while we contact our superiors. Return to our home planet? Chun's eyebrows rose. Captain, we are returning. This is one of dozens of patrol groups that guard our borders. Earth maintains a continuous military presence throughout this entire region. Dozens of patrol groups? Yes. Each group has between 10 and 50 ships, depending on the sector. Valther's mind raced to do the mathematics. If each patrol group had even 20 ships, and there were dozens of them, how many ships does Earth have total? That's classified information, Captain. But I can tell you that what you're seeing here is a very small portion of our defensive capabilities. The Imperial captain looked at his own crew. They were all staring at the view screen with shock and confusion. His ship was powerful, one of the Empire's best. But if these humans really had thousands of ships... Commander, he said slowly, our records show that your species was still fighting wars with primitive weapons just a few centuries ago. We were. Humans learn from conflict. Every war taught us something new about technology, strategy, and cooperation. Eventually, we learned that working together was more effective than fighting each other. But how did you advance so quickly? Chun smiled for the first time in the conversation. Captain, when you know you're not alone in the universe, you prepare accordingly. Earth has been ready for galactic contact for a long time. Ready for contact? But you're in a protected zone. Protected by whom? We never agreed to any protection. From our perspective, there's been a zone of space that aliens have been mysteriously avoiding for centuries. We assumed you were either afraid of something in this region or afraid of us. Valther felt sweat forming on his blue skin. Afraid of you? Think about it, Captain. You have an empire that spans hundreds of worlds, and yet you avoid one small star system for 800 years. What does that suggest to you? It suggests we're being responsible and protecting a developing species. Or it suggests, something that made you decide this system was too dangerous to approach. The Imperial captain stared at the human commander. She looked so calm and reasonable, but her words were turning his understanding of the galaxy upside down. Commander Chun, I think I need to report this conversation to my superiors. Of course, Captain. We'll be here when they want to talk. You'll be here? This is our space, Captain Velther. We're not going anywhere. The communication ended, and the view screen returned to showing the 3 human ships. They sat motionless at the border, not advancing but clearly not retreating either. Captain, his navigation officer said quietly, "What are your orders?" Velther looked at the human ships again. They were beautiful in a way that Imperial designs weren't. All clean lines and efficiency. No wasted space or decorative elements. They looked like they were built by people who expected to use them in real battles. "Set course for the nearest Imperial base," he said finally. "Maximum speed. And send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we need to speak with Admiral Kethver immediately." "What should the message say, sir?" Velther thought about Commander Chun's calm confidence, about her claims of thousands of ships and centuries of preparation. "Tell them the humans have left their planet. And I think they've been gone for a very long time." The Imperial High Council chamber had never been so loud. Voices echoed off the crystal walls as 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy argued like children. At the center of it all sat Emperor Thekmal, his ancient face showing more worry than it had in centuries. "This is impossible," shouted Counselor Zexhai, her tentacles writhing with anger. "Primitives cannot develop faster than light travel in just 3 centuries." "Yet the evidence is clear," replied Counselor Mordun, his scaled hands holding data tablets. "Captain Velther's recordings show ships using technology we don't recognize. The humans claim to have thousands of vessels." Admiral Kethver stood at the presentation platform, feeling smaller than he had in his entire career. "My lords, I have reviewed all available data. The human ships show design principles that are completely foreign to Imperial technology." "Foreign how?" Emperor Thekmal's voice cut through the arguing. "They appear to be built for efficiency rather than intimidation, my lord. No decorative elements, no displays of power. Everything serves a function. Our engineers estimate their power-to-mass ratio is at least 30% better than our best designs." The chamber fell silent. 30% was an enormous advantage in space combat. "How is that possible?" asked Counselor Vethara. "We believe it's because they've been designing ships for actual warfare, while our designs have focused on showing Imperial might to conquered peoples. When you don't have to impress anyone, you can focus entirely on performance." Grand Admiral Zephos rose from his seat. He was the oldest military commander in the Empire, with over 400 years of service. His victories had brought dozens of worlds under Imperial control. "My Emperor, I believe we are overthinking this problem." "So the humans have a few ships. So what? The Empire has fought species with advanced technology before. We always win because we have experience and numbers." "They claim to have thousands of ships," Kethver reminded him. "They claim many things. Primitives often lie to seem more dangerous than they are. Even if they have a few hundred ships, the Empire can field tens of thousands." Emperor Thekmal leaned forward in his crystal throne. "What do you recommend, Grand Admiral?" "A show of force, my lord. Take a substantial fleet to their system and remind them of their place in the galaxy. Once they see true Imperial might, they will submit like every other species has. And if they don't submit?" asked Counselor Mordun. Zepho smiled coldly. "Then we destroy them and find another species to protect in that region." The galaxy has millions of primitive worlds. The Emperor considered this. How large a fleet would you need? 300 ships should be more than enough, my lord. Battlegroup Nemesis is already prepared for deployment. My flagship Eternal Dominion will lead them. 300 ships seems excessive for dealing with primitives, worried Counselor Vethara. It's not excessive if it prevents a war, Zephos replied. Better to overwhelming force once than to fight a long conflict. Emperor Thekmal nodded slowly. Very well. Grand Admiral Zephos, you are authorized to take Battlegroup Nemesis to the Sol System. Your mission is to establish Imperial authority and bring the humans back under proper protection. And if they resist, then you have permission to use whatever force is necessary. 3 days later, Battlegroup Nemesis left, Imperial space bound for Earth. 300 warships formed an impressive sight, the largest single fleet the Empire had deployed in over a century. At their head flew the Eternal Dominion, a massive dreadnought that had never lost a battle. Grand Admiral Zephos stood on his command bridge, watching the stars streak past as his fleet traveled faster than light. Around him, his staff worked efficiently at their stations. These were the Empire's best officers, veterans of dozens of campaigns. Admiral, his intelligence officer, reported, "We're receiving continuous monitoring signals from the direction of Earth. They know we're coming." "Of course they do. Let them watch. Fear will make them more reasonable when we arrive." "Sir, the signals suggest their sensor technology is very advanced. They detected us from much farther away than our own sensors could manage." Zephos waved a dismissive hand. "Sensor technology is easy to develop. Building real warships is much harder. Admiral, I'm also detecting what appear to be automated monitoring stations throughout this region." "Hundreds of them. Monitoring stations?" "Yes, sir. Small automated platforms that seem to be tracking our movement and transmitting data back toward Earth." The Grand Admiral frowned. That level of infrastructure suggests significant organization and resources. Should we destroy the platforms? No. Let them watch. When they see what happens to species that defy the Empire, perhaps other primitives will be more cooperative. As the fleet drew closer to Earth's star system, more details became clear. The human monitoring network was vast and sophisticated. Long-range sensors detected massive structures orbiting several planets and moons. Energy readings suggested industrial capacity on a scale that rivaled major imperial worlds. "How many people live in this system?" Zephos asked his intelligence officer. "Our estimates range from 8 to 12 billion. "Admiral, that's substantial. Most imperial worlds have fewer than 5 billion inhabitants." "Yes, sir. And the energy patterns suggest they're all working together rather than fighting separate wars." Zephos had conquered many worlds, but usually they were divided into competing nations or factions. A unified planet with 12 billion people was something new. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Already?" "We're still 6 hours out." "Yes, sir." "The signal is very clear and strong. Put it on screen." A human appeared on the view screen. He was an older male with gray hair and a formal military uniform covered in decorations. His expression was calm but serious. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Thompson of Earth Defense Command. I am speaking to the Imperial fleet approaching our system. You are entering sovereign Earth territory with a military force. State your intentions." Zephos straightened his imposing frame. "I am Grand Admiral Zephos of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been under Imperial protection for 8 centuries. Recent actions by your ships have violated that protection. I am here to restore proper order." "I see. And what does proper order mean?" "It means recognizing Imperial authority over this region and accepting guidance in your development as a spacefaring species." Admiral Thompson was quiet for a moment. "Grand Admiral, I need to inform you that Earth does not recognize any imperial authority. We are a sovereign species in our own territory. If you enter our space with hostile intent, we will defend ourselves. Defend yourselves? Against 300 imperial warships? If necessary. Admiral Thompson, you are either very brave or very foolish. No species has ever successfully resisted the Empire. The human smiled slightly. Grand Admiral, no species has ever been Earth. The transmission ended, leaving Zepho staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers worked quietly at their stations, but he could sense their uncertainty. They had expected the humans to surrender immediately when they saw the size of the Imperial fleet. Sir, his sensor officer called out, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Sol system. Whatever they're powering up, it's big. Zephos looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere among them was a small blue world that had somehow challenged the greatest empire in galactic history. He had led fleets against rebel worlds before, but those rebels had been afraid. These humans didn't sound afraid at all. Continue on course, he ordered. All ships maintain battle formation. Whatever they're planning, 300 Imperial ships can handle it. But as his fleet moved deeper into human space, Grand Admiral Zephos began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. Grand Admiral Zephos expected to see a few dozen primitive ships when his fleet reached Earth's outer defenses. What he found instead changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human fleet spread across space like a three-dimensional wall of steel and energy. Thousands of ships formed perfect formations that stretched from one side of the solar system to the other. Massive space stations anchored the defensive lines, their weapons already tracking the incoming Imperial force. Smaller ships darted between the larger vessels like schools of fish, their movements coordinated with mathematical precision. By the gods, whispered his sensor officer. Admiral, I'm counting over 6,000 vessels. And those space stations? Some of them are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts. Zephos gripped the railing of his command platform. That's impossible. No single world can support a fleet that size. Sir, energy readings suggest many of those ships are more advanced than anything in our databases. Their power outputs are off our measurement scales. On the main view screen, Admiral Thompson appeared again. Grand Admiral Zephos, you have brought a military force into Earthspace despite our warning. This is your final opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Zephos felt 3 centuries of military pride burning in his chest. Admiral Thompson, I command 300 of the Empire's finest warships. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Surrender now, and your species will be treated mercifully. I understand your confidence, Grand Admiral. Why? The Empire has been successful against many species. But you've never faced humanity before. What makes humans so special? Thompson's expression became sad. We're very good at learning from our mistakes. And we've been studying your military tactics for a very long time. Studying our tactics? How? Grand Admiral, did you really think your empire could fight wars across the galaxy without someone watching? Earth has been monitoring imperial conflicts for over 2 centuries. We know how your ships fight, how your commanders think, and how your technology works. Zephos felt cold fear creeping up his spine. You've been spying on us? We've been learning from you. Every battle you fought taught us something new. We know your strengths and your weaknesses. And what did you learn? That the Empire fights the same way every time. Your tactics haven't changed in a millennium. You rely on overwhelming firepower and expect your enemies to be afraid. Those tactics have never failed. They've never faced an enemy that had time to prepare. Grand Admiral, please reconsider. Earth doesn't want war, but we're ready for it. Zephos looked at his tactical display. 300 Imperial ships against 6,000 human vessels. The numbers were bad, but Imperial technology was superior. It had to be. All ships, attack formation, he commanded. Show these primitives the power of the Empire. Battle Group Nemesis moved forward in the traditional Imperial battle line. 300 ships arranged in perfect rows, their weapons charging for a devastating first strike. It was a formation that had broken the defenses of countless worlds. The human response was like nothing Xephos had ever seen. Instead of meeting his charge head-on, the Earth ships scattered in all directions. Small, fast vessels darted around his formation, while larger ships provided covering fire from unexpected angles. The humans fought like a living organism, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be. "Admiral," his weapons officer shouted, "their small ships are jamming our targeting systems." "Impossible. Imperial targeting computers are the most advanced in the galaxy. Sir, they're using some kind of adaptive interference. Every time our computers adjust, their jamming adapts faster." The first exchange of fire showed Xephos the horrible truth. Imperial weapons that could destroy mountains barely scratched human shield systems. Meanwhile, human weapons cut through Imperial defenses like they weren't even there. His beautiful ships began dying one by one, their crews never understanding what had hit them. How are they doing this? Xephos demanded. "Admiral," his science officer called out, "their technology is completely different from ours. We've been improving the same basic designs for centuries. They've been starting from scratch every generation." "What does that mean?" "It means while we perfected old ideas, they invented entirely new ones. Their ships don't just use better versions of our technology. They use technology we never imagined." On screen, Xephos watched a single human destroyer engage 3 Imperial cruisers. The human ship moved like a dancer, avoiding every shot while its weapons systematically destroyed its larger opponents. The Imperial ships couldn't even hit it, let alone damage it. "Sir," the communications officer yelled, "Cruiser Domination is reporting total systems failure. Something is affecting their computers." "Cyber warfare," the science officer explained. "They're attacking our computer networks directly. Our systems weren't designed to resist that kind of assault." More Imperial ships went dark as human cyber attacks spread through the fleet like a virus. Ships that weren't destroyed outright found themselves unable to fire weapons, navigate, or even communicate. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, "we've lost 60 ships in the first 10 minutes. The humans have lost none." Xephos stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His proud fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate his every move. Every time he ordered a new formation or strategy, the humans were already countering it before his ships could respond. "How do they know what we're going to do before we do it?" he asked. "They've been studying us for centuries, Admiral. They probably know our tactical manual better than we do." A massive explosion shook the Eternal Dominion as human weapons found their target. The great ship that had never been damaged in 4 centuries of service was slowly being torn apart by weapons it couldn't defend against. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships. They're asking permission to withdraw from the battle." Xephos looked around his command bridge. Half his officers were dead or wounded. Emergency lights flickered as ship systems failed one by one. Outside the viewing ports, he could see the wreckage of what had once been the Empire's mightiest fleet. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "we have 43 ships left operational. The humans still have over 5,000. How long have we been fighting?" 37 minutes, sir." 37 minutes. In just over half an hour, the Empire's greatest military force had been reduced to scattered survivors. Xephos had led battles that lasted for days or weeks. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human flagship." Admiral Thompson, appeared on screen again. His uniform was still clean, his expression still calm. He looked like someone who had just finished a routine training exercise. "Grand Admiral Zephos, you have fought bravely. This battle is over. Surrender your remaining ships, and we will provide medical assistance to your wounded." "You're offering to help us?" "Of course. Earth has no desire to kill unnecessarily. We simply wanted to make a point." "What point?" "That the age of empires is ending. Species that try to rule others through fear and force will discover that some of us have grown beyond such things." Zephos looked at his ruined bridge and his dead officers. "What happens if I surrender?" "You'll be treated with respect and return to Imperial space with a message for your Emperor." "What message?" "That Earth is willing to talk, but only as equals. No more protection zones. No more Imperial authority over human space. If your Empire can accept that, we can discuss peaceful coexistence." The Grand Admiral closed his eyes. His entire career, everything he believed about Imperial superiority, had been destroyed in 37 minutes. "Admiral Thompson," he said quietly, "I surrender." As the surviving Imperial ships powered down their weapons, Zephos realized that the Empire had just encountered something it had never faced before. A species that was not only stronger, but more civilized than they were. The humans could have destroyed every Imperial ship, but they chose mercy instead. For the first time in his long life, Grand Admiral Zephos wondered if the Empire was the villain in this story. Emperor Thekmal had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. In all that time, no one had ever brought him news like this. "Say that again," he commanded, his voice echoing through the crystal throne room. Grand Admiral Zephos stood before him, still wearing bandages from his wounds. The once proud military leader looked broken and old. "My Emperor, Battle Group Nemesis was destroyed. 300 ships reduced to 43 survivors in 37 minutes. By primitives? By the most advanced military force I have ever encountered, my lord. The humans aren't primitives. They may be the most sophisticated species in the galaxy." The High Council chamber erupted in angry voices. Councilors shouted accusations and demands for explanations. Emperor Thekmal raised one hand, and silence fell immediately. "Explain their capabilities," the Emperor said calmly. Zephos activated a holographic display showing the battle. "Their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours in every category. Their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, their defense is impenetrable by our standards. But technology wasn't their greatest advantage. What was? Intelligence. They knew everything about us before we arrived. Our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. They had been studying the Empire for centuries, learning from every conflict we fought." Councilor Zexhai hissed angrily. "How is that possible?" "They've been watching us, my lords. Monitoring our communications, observing our battles, analyzing our strategies. While we thought they were primitive, they were building a complete understanding of Imperial capabilities. And we never detected them? Their stealth technology is beyond our ability to counter. They can observe us without us knowing they exist." Emperor Thekmal leaned back in his throne, absorbing the implications. What did they want? What were their demands? "That's the strange part, my lord. They don't want to conquer us. They want to talk." "Talk?" "They're offering peaceful coexistence. Equal partnership rather than Imperial dominance. But only if we recognize their sovereignty over their own space. Equal partnership?" Councilor Morden laughed bitterly. "The Empire does not have partners. We have subjects." "With respect, my lord," Zephos said quietly, "we may not have a choice." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. The Emperor's personal guard rushed into the chamber as communications officers ran to their posts. "My Emperor!" The head of palace security called out. We're receiving reports from across the Empire. Rebellions have started on over 40 worlds. Rebellions? The news of our defeat has spread, my lord. Species that have been under imperial rule for centuries are declaring independence. They're saying if primitives from Earth could defeat us, maybe the Empire isn't invincible after all. Emperor Vecmal felt his stomach drop. The Empire's greatest weapon had always been fear. If species no longer feared imperial might, how bad is it? He asked. The Galaxian colonies have expelled all imperial forces. The Drovan worlds have declared a free republic. Even some of the core worlds are demanding new governments. My lord, another officer reported, we're also detecting unknown ships throughout imperial space. Small vessels, very advanced, just observing our responses to the rebellions. Human ships? Almost certainly, my lord. They're watching to see how we handle the crisis. Counselor Vethara stood up frantically. We must crush these rebellions immediately. Show the galaxy that the Empire is still strong. With what ships? Zephos asked tiredly. My lords, we just lost our most powerful fleet. If we deploy our remaining forces to fight rebellions, what happens when the humans decide they want to expand beyond their own system? You think they would attack us? I think they could destroy us whenever they choose to. The only question is whether they want to. Emperor Vecmal closed his ancient eyes. Everything he had built, everything his ancestors had conquered, was falling apart. But perhaps there was another way. Contact the humans, he said quietly. My emperor? Several counselors gasped. You heard me. Send a message to Earth. Tell them the Empire would like to discuss their proposal. We're going to negotiate with primitives? Counselor Zexhai demanded. We're going to negotiate with superiors, the Emperor corrected. Because that's what they are. 2 weeks later, a small human ship docked with the Imperial Station at the edge of Earth's territory. Emperor Vecmal had never left the Imperial capital to meet anyone, but these were not normal times. He waited in the station's conference room with only his most trusted advisors. When the humans entered, Vecmal was struck by how ordinary they looked. Admiral Thompson led a small delegation of diplomats and scientists. They could have been any species from any peaceful world in the Empire, except for their eyes. Their eyes held intelligence and confidence that spoke of centuries of preparation. Emperor Vecmal, Admiral Thompson said, bowing slightly. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Admiral Thompson, I confess I am curious about your proposal. The human admiral activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Your empire controls about 60% of known space, Your Majesty. But that control is based on fear and force. Our analysis suggests it's becoming unstable. Our analysis suggests the same thing, the Emperor admitted. Earth proposes a different model. Instead of one empire ruling through conquest, we suggest a galactic confederation based on mutual cooperation and respect. A confederation? Each species maintains sovereignty over their own space. Disputes are resolved through negotiation rather than war. Trade and cultural exchange happen freely between willing partners. Councilor Morden scoffed. That sounds like chaos. How would such a system maintain order? A human diplomat answered. The same way Earth maintains order among 12 billion people, Counselor. Through laws that apply equally to everyone, and institutions that serve everyone's interests. And if someone breaks these laws, then everyone else enforces them together. No single species dominates the others. Emperor Vecmal studied the galactic map. And what role would the Empire play in this confederation? Whatever role you choose, Admiral Thompson replied. Earth has no desire to rule over other species. We've seen how that ends. But we also won't allow others to rule over us. What about species that prefer the imperial system? If they truly prefer it and choose it freely, That's their decision. But choice is the key word. No more forcing civilizations to submit. The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Admiral, your species defeated our greatest fleet in less than an hour. You could have destroyed our entire empire by now if you wanted to. Why offer cooperation instead of conquest? Admiral Thompson smiled. Because conquest doesn't last, Your Majesty. Fear-based empires always fall eventually. But partnerships based on mutual respect can last forever. And if we refuse your proposal, then Earth will defend itself and its allies. But we hope it won't come to that. Emperor Vekmal looked around the table at his advisors. Some showed anger, others fear, but all of them showed understanding of their new reality. Admiral Thompson, he said finally, the Empire would like to discuss the terms of this confederation. As the negotiations began, Emperor Vekmal realized that the small blue world his ancestors had tried to protect had instead taught the galaxy a lesson about true strength. The humans hadn't won through superior weapons or greater numbers. They had won by growing beyond the need to dominate others. For the first time in his 300-year reign, the Emperor felt hope for the future. Perhaps the Age of Empires was indeed ending. And perhaps that was not a tragedy, but an evolution. Outside the station's viewing ports, human and Imperial ships floated peacefully side by side. It was a sight no one had imagined possible just months before. But then again, humans had always been good making the impossible seem inevitable. The forbidden zone around Earth was officially dissolved that day, replaced by something far more powerful, respect. And as news of the Confederation spread throughout the galaxy, species everywhere began to hope that they too might someday earn the right to call themselves equals among the stars. The Empire had lost everything to its pride. But in losing, it had gained something even more valuable. The chance to become something better than it had ever been before.